All right, guys, I am super excited to announce this next speaker today. So, just a little background if you didn't already know, I am in Cabo San Lucas. I have been here for about 6 months already, and we're going to be spending another 6 months here. And we ran into Mike just from friends having dinner. And I was super excited to meet him. Number one, he is also a real estate investor. But the thing that intrigued me most is he has been a nomad for the last 6 years. And if you don't know what a nomad is, this is an individual that travels around the world, when it goes wherever he wants to go, whenever he wants to go. And there's really no timeline. Like there's no end in sight for him, I don't think. And that really intrigues me. I love that. Mike has been a real estate investor for over 30 years. He's got hundreds of doors of long-term rental properties, and he is actually the owner of Mike Wolf Mastery. And so we have the same goal: teaching other people how to create multiple streams of passive income so that you too can travel and really have that freedom, that time freedom, that money freedom. So, Mike, I'm super excited to talk to you today and share you with my audience. So, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here, and it's great that we're both in Cabo right now. So, amidst all this COVID crap that's going on around the world, so we're lucky.
Yes, we're extremely lucky. So, Mike, I want to start off just kind of in the very beginning, right? So, I know you've been doing this for a long time, but I would love to learn how you got started because we are speaking to real estate agents today, real estate agents, real estate brokers, and the majority of the audience today are realtors that feel like they're on a hamster wheel. They're working really, really hard. They're selling a bunch of houses, but they're really building that wealth for other people, not really themselves. And so some of the agents on here, they don't even own a home themselves. And so thinking about investing into a rental property or something, some other type of real estate investment is very scary for them. So can you tell us kind of how did you get started in real estate investing?
Well, first of all, I can totally relate to those realtors that are watching this right now because I was a realtor in a previous life. But how I got into investing was absolutely it was a really good mistake, but it was a mistake. I actually was living my parents' dream for me, and I remember middle of grade 12, I had no idea what I wanted to do the next year. But my parents are pretty much forcing me to go to university no matter what. I just didn't know what I wanted to be, and my parents were always drilling into my head, doctor, lawyer, and I'm terrified of blood, so doctor was not in the cards at all. So by default, I decided, okay, I'll go to law school and got my first degree, racked up a ton of student loans, and then decided before I go back and get my second degree, I'm going to get these paid off. So a buddy of mine, his mother was a manager at the phone company, which back then was union and it was government run and it paid really well. So got a job there. While I was there, I bought my first residence. And shortly after I bought that, my mortgage broker calls me up and goes, Mike, if you want, I mean, you're making good money. If you want, I can get you another mortgage to buy another property. And I remember thinking to myself, well, why do I want another property? And I wish I got that call every day now where somebody said, hey, we're going to give you money to buy another property. But so anyway, he goes, well, you buy the property, put a tenant in there. They're going to pay your mortgage for you. And in 25 years, this thing is paid off. And then that's your retirement. I go, that kind of makes sense. So I did that. I back in those days had no idea what due diligence there was to do on this sort of investment. So I just bought something that was close to my home. So it was easy to go collect the rent checks and something that looked pretty. And that was it. And this property cash flow, maybe like on a good month, 25 bucks. I certainly wasn't getting rich off the cash flow, but a couple of years after I bought it, the market took off. And all of a sudden the home that I was living in, plus this rental property, they both went up tremendously. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, in the last 2 years, I made this much working at the phone company, doing something I don't really love. And I made this much in real estate, and I don't even know what I'm doing in real estate. So it was kind of a double-edged sword because on the one hand, I was sitting on some equity. On the other hand, back then I was in my mid-20s and my ego kind of got the best of me. And I thought, oh, I'm God's gift to real estate investing. Of course I made money because I'm smart. I didn't really take into account that I just got really lucky with the timing of the market and managed to lose almost all of what I made on the next deal. So it was a very humbling lesson. And I had already quit my job at the phone company, by the way, at this point, because I thought I had figure out how to win the lottery. And more importantly, I already told my mother that I'm not going to law school. That's your dream for me. That's not my dream. I'm a real estate investor now. And so I lost almost all that money. I couldn't really go back to her and say, she was telling me, oh, get your next degree, have something to fall back on. I couldn't really go. I was too proud to go back to her and told her that I had a really big loss. And you're right, I'm going back to school. So I had no choice but to figure this out. And that's the only reason I'm doing investing today, is that I had kind of burnt my bridges. I don't necessarily recommend that everybody, especially a realtor, you don't need to do that. You can do this hand in hand. Matter of fact, it's complementary. But that humbling lesson led me to hiring my first mentor. And that's the only reason that I am still doing real estate today. If I'd be talking about maybe law right now. You invite me on to talk about the legalities of real estate investing instead of actually doing it. So, but for those people that are realtors that don't know how to invest, I'd strongly recommend having that. One, it's going to make you more money as a realtor, because I get realtors all the time calling me up and they know I buy a lot of properties. And they say, Mike, how do I get your business? But we don't speak the same language. Being a realtor, being a real estate investor, those are two different languages. We're both in real estate, but at very different angles. And so if you don't even understand, how to find something that makes sense for me, we're not going to do business. So number one, you're going to get a lot more business if you can speak the same language as an investor. And then secondly, learn from those investors are probably making a lot more money than you. And I know some realtors make a lot of money. I actually was a very successful realtor. But the biggest problem is you're only as good as your last deal. And as soon as if you ever get sick or the economy collapses, nobody's buying. If we look back at 2007, 2008, great opportunity for investors, not a good opportunity for realtors a lot of times. And so you need to create passive income and get this money coming month after month after month. So sorry for the super long answer, but I get really excited because this is right up my alley. I'm very passionate about this topic.
There is just so much synergy between the way that we both think about investing and passive income and all of that. And thank God for that mortgage broker. That is really smart. If there is a mortgage broker listening in right now, think about that. Like if you're needing business, I know they're all out, networking with all of us real estate agents, but think about just calling your existing clients that have gotten loans from you and explaining about the benefits of investing in real estate. That sounds like just a no-brainer to me.
Mic drop there. And
yeah.
One of the things that I did is so shortly after I got into real estate investing, I had that success. I got my realtor license because I thought that it'd be nice to have access to the MLS. Truth is, I rarely bought properties off the MLS. Not to say you can't, but what I started to do though is a lot of my clients that were buying their principal residences, I did the same thing the mortgage broker did for me. And I called them up and said, hey, by the way, you can qualify for a lot more than what you used to buy your residence. If you want, I can show you how to make money as an investor. And so I turned people that didn't even know they wanted to be investors into investors. And so as a realtor, if you can do that, you're going to get a lot more deals every single year. You really need, if you have just one or two investors, you're going to make more money than working with people looking for, people looking for their principal residence is a very emotional decision. They want to look at a million homes. It's very time consuming. If you work with somebody who's an investor, they're just looking at numbers. They don't even want to see the homes. They want to see the numbers. And so you can make a lot more money with a lot less running around. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that just gave me another idea too. For these real estate agents, you can also, the market's huge. The market's hot right now. I think we're top of the market. So another idea for all of the real estate agents on here is to call your existing clients, to call people who you've sold homes to and explain to them about HELOCs, home equity line of credits, because I know I'm a big fan of them, especially with your personal home. If you have a few $100,000 of equity sitting in there, why not go and get that HELOC on the home? You don't have to use it right now. You can wait until the market goes down, which I believe is going to be in a couple of years, right? But you're going to be sitting pretty because you'll have that money sitting there ready to invest. And depending on how much it is, you could buy cash for cheap, right? Or you could use that as down payments and go ahead and get the loans as well. So it just really depends. And that's really preparing and setting yourself up for success to ride the waves of the up and down market.
I agree. Somebody who's sitting on a lot of equity right now, to me, that's like the money is so cheap and there's so many opportunities out there. And even if you were afraid to do a deal yourself, be a money partner, meaning go team up with somebody like myself or you or any other investor that's got deals, because they're always wanting to do more deals, and then get a piece of that. So you can team up with them, you can even get 50% of the profits, whatever you negotiate. But you're sitting on sitting on that equity. Like my parents always told me, buy a home, pay it off. That's the worst advice ever. If you pay it off, use that money, leverage that money to make yourself more money. And that's a game changer. And I know a lot of people are afraid of debt, but you really have to differentiate between good debt and bad debt. If you're going and you're taking money out of your home to buy yourself a boat, as much as I like having friends with boats. I'll never own a boat. I like having friends with boats, and not to criticize anybody who's done that, but that's usually not the best kind of debt, because you're buying something that's depreciating. If you're using it to buy real estate, something that's going up or generating, if you're borrowing money at 3% right now and you can loan it out at 7 or 8%, that's free money, as long as you know how to protect yourself to make sure the money is going to come back. And this is some of the stuff that you want to learn, because if you don't know this, chances are, one, you're working way too hard, and two, if you don't own real estate, you're paying way too much tax. Those are the two things I can guarantee you right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's a common thread, throughout everyone that I'm interviewing today. It's a matter of investing in assets, buying assets, not liabilities. We've had a few people on today that have had farms and they're doing all kinds of cool things, but they're turning these, which could be complete liabilities, into assets. And if you don't understand the difference between an asset and a liability, then I know what I did to learn about this was I read a book, and it was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's like the investor's Bible. I think every real estate investor I've spoken to has read this book. And Robert Kiyosaki, actually Sharon Letcher co-authored, but Robert got all the fame for it. And Sharon's actually going to be speaking a little bit later today. So that's exciting. And she's going to be talking about assets are sexy. And, that's really what we're pouring into everyone watching today, is just that mind shift. So Mike, I want to go back just a few minutes. When you lost everything, I know that we turn our messes into our miracles, right? And at that point, you went and hired someone that took you to a whole other level that you would have never gotten to, because you were thinking like, oh, I'm the best investor ever, right? You would have never gotten to that next level if you hadn't hired that mentor. But what made you hire the mentor? Why didn't you just pack up your stuff and say, I'm done, I'm going to get a job?
Well, for me, it was, being in my mid-20s, when I couldn't tell my parents they were right. It's like, yeah, I should have got my other degree. I couldn't tell them they were right. And I was too stubborn. So I'm glad I was too stubborn. But, in all honesty, if that were to happen now, as we get older, quite often, we get beaten up by life. Life, gives us some, knocks us down, and a lot of times we don't get back up again. And one of the things that I tell my students is that, don't be, back then I was a know-it-all. So I tell people, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And so after that very humbling experience of losing most of what I had made, because here I am thinking I figure out how to win the lottery, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, knocked down, not knowing what the next step is. And then I found somebody who's, that first property, you got to remember, my goal was to hold that for 25 years. And that was my retirement. And once I got a taste of that paycheck, the greed kind of kicked in. It's like, I don't want to wait 25 years. And in that case, it had been 2 years. By the time I bought it to the time I sold it, it was 2 years. I can't, once you quit your job, you can't wait 2 years for your next paycheck. So I just thought, I'll figure it out. And I just need to get a paycheck if I can get a paycheck every 60 or 90 days like that one, then I'm laughing. But I didn't really have the recipe on how to do it. And so having that humbling experience, I found somebody who was successfully flipping homes, which is a much different strategy than buying and holding, which is what I was starting off with. And basically said, listen, I've got some money. Let's do a joint venture together. And I'm willing to give you most of the profit, but I want you to teach me as we go. And had I not become humble, because I wouldn't say I was a jerk, but I'd say I was becoming a little bit arrogant. In your mid-20s, a guy with all of a sudden like these big paychecks. I became much more coachable at that moment when I realized, okay, I don't know it all. I don't know how to duplicate what I just did. I can't tell my parents they were right. I burnt the bridge at the phone company. I had nowhere really to go but to get back up. But my advice to anybody else who's watching, it's really easy to get knocked down, especially these days. There's so much negativity out there with the COVID and all the stuff that's going on. The quicker you can pull yourself back up, just because you got knocked down doesn't mean that's a life sentence. What's happened to you in your past does not have to be your future. So it's never too late to reinvent yourself, to retrain yourself. Right now, there's so many people losing jobs and businesses shutting down. I see this as an opportunity to reinvent yourself, learn, get some new skill sets, take this downtime that a lot of us have right now to educate yourself on something new that you don't know how to do before. And so if you do that, that Amanda or the Mike or whoever's watching 2.0, version 2.0 of yourself doesn't have to be the 1.0 version of yourself.
Yep, for sure. So you focus on long-term rentals because you're going after the passive income, just like we're going after the passive income. We have our, multiple streams of that as well. So can you explain why having passive income is so important to you?
Here's the key is that really, and not everybody can start off, by the way, with passive income. Some of you watching might have to build up a little bit more capital. You can use other people's money, by the way. But the bottom line is, though, everybody who gets into real estate, their end goal should be to create passive income. And the definition of passive income is to do something one time and get paid for it over and over and over again without having to keep trading your time for money. So I want to make a distinction because some people think that they talk about recurring revenue. Recurring revenue is great. Like if you buy a rental property and you're managing it yourself, you've created recurring revenue. You got now a paycheck that comes in every month. But if it's you that's going to collect it, you haven't really got your freedom because now you got to go chase after tenants and you're going to get calls at 2 a.m. with leaky toilets. And you're going to create a full-time job for yourself that isn't that scalable because once you get to a certain number of properties, you're not going to have enough time. It is I used to do my own property management. Never do your own property management. Even if you have one property, I would say don't do your own property management. To me, that'd be like buying a McDonald's franchise and then saying, to cut costs, I think I'll go flip burgers all day. Like you're getting into business to give yourself freedom. So always keep your goal in mind. So recurring revenue is doing something once, getting paid for it over and over, but still having to trade your time for money to do it. Passive income is buying a rental property, having somebody else manage it 100%, not deal with anything, and then go create a lifestyle that you love. And so passive income is really, really important. Some people, to get the money to play in that world, you might have to do some flips first. You might have to do some wholesaling first. You might have to do some more deals as a realtor first. But there's ways to do real estate with none of your own money. And I've done a lot of deals with none of my own money. And this is some of the stuff that I love to teach people. Because a lot of people, they think, if I only had more money, I would jump in. And then I have to remind them, when I bought my first piece of property, I was 25, my net worth was negative 25,000 because I had these student loans that were hanging over my head. This is in 1989. So 25,000 in 1989 was a lot of, at least for me, felt like a lot of money. So for those people who call me up and say, Mike, I'd love to get started, but I've got zero. It's like, man, when I started, I was aspiring to get to zero. I could not wait to get to zero. So you don't need, money is not something that should be your hurdle. There's lots of ways to do it. A lot of people are sitting, like you said earlier, they're sitting on equity in their home. They've got money in their retirement funds that they don't know they can use towards real estate. They've got other people who might have equity in their home that they might be able to borrow from and borrow that money for cheap to go do your own real estate deals. There's so many different ways. And a lot of people just get stuck in this little mindset thing that says, I don't have enough money to get started. And it makes me very, very sad.
Yeah. I agree, and we teach a lot of short-term rentals, and we just had a deal come across us last week, and it was a landlord reached out to us, and she already had this Airbnb up and running, but she had to move over to, I don't even know where she was, somewhere out of the country, like in Africa or something. And she reached out to us because we have a well-known name there in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And she just wanted us to take over the property. And it was in an area that we don't really know very well, but I have a student in that area. Nice. And so I made the connection between the two. Literally, our student is taking over this Airbnb. She is co-hosting this for this lady. She has no money into this project at all. And she's going to be able to cash flow positively between $500 and $700 a month on this deal with no money in.
Gotta love free money.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the return on $700 a month when you pay zero? That's infinite. So those are returns you don't get at the bank, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, as you know, we are speaking to real estate agents today. So what is something that you want to, I guess, tell realtors when it comes to switching the mindset from being the real estate agent, being too busy, buying and selling properties for other people, and thinking about investing in real estate? Is there something that really sticks out to you because you were a real estate agent, that can help them with just that little tweak in their mindset?
Well, I could talk about this topic for like 10 days straight and not run out of material because it's one that's very dear to my heart. And I've got a good friend of mine. He's a realtor in Southern California, and when I first met him, he was doing well. He's making a pretty decent living, like above average, especially in Southern California. You don't have to sell a lot of homes to make some pretty good commissions. So he's doing all right for himself. But then as he learned more about real estate investing, he had last year, for example, he had a property that had he listed it, he would have made around $20,000 on it because he put another tool in his tool belt and learned another strategy on how to flip this property instead of listing it. He basically created a really good win for the homeowner because he gave them the possession they wanted. They didn't have to put it on the market. They didn't have anybody walking through the home. They were super happy. And he took that property that he would have made $20,000 on and made over $100,000 on it. So, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that having a few extra tools in your tool belt, you're doing the same listing appointment. To me, if I can 5X what I'm making just by having one extra little, thing in my tool belt, the more, when I used to be a realtor, the thing that always amazed me, I hardly ever went to the office. I had an assistant. He'd drop off all my paperwork. Occasionally we'd have these mandatory meetings, and sometimes I'd get out of them. But when I'd go, nobody in the office knew me. I was always a top realtor in the office, but nobody knew me because I didn't hang out there. And so I just remember whenever I did go to the office, there were always people, other realtors sitting around, drinking coffee, reading the newspaper, and they're not out doing deals. And most realtors I found, I don't know if it's still the same, but back in those days, they took the bare bones minimum requirement of education to keep their license, but they wouldn't go learn beyond that. And so I say, be a lifelong learner and just up your game a little bit and have a competitive advantage over the other realtors. You're going to make a lot more money. You're going to be able to help a lot more people, create more win-wins. And having the bare bones minimum to be a realtor, you still have the tools to help people, but you're leaving a lot of money on the table and a lot of people that you could have helped. Like for example, if 2007, back when a lot of people had no equity, a lot of these people couldn't afford to list with realtors because they would have had to pay out of their pocket to sell their home. Well, if you're a real estate investor, we have solutions for that. So if you believe like I do that what's coming down the pipeline as a result of this global economy shutdown is probably not going to be great for a lot of people, and there's going to be some people losing their homes, you need to upgrade your skills or you are leaving a ton of money on the table. So but I could go on and on and on. How long do I have?
I agree. We have about 10 minutes left. But Mike, what really stuck out to me when I met you and we were out having some fun here in Cabo was, when you told me how many properties you have, and you can say that or not, it doesn't matter, but Mike has a lot of long-term rental properties and they're all single family homes. And so what really stuck out was you don't get bothered with anything that's going on with the properties. I mean, I'm talking about what if something needs a new HVAC or a new roof. I'm talking about the big issues that normally the property managers will reach out to you because it's a large ticket item. And you said, no, I don't even know, what's going on with any of the properties unless it burns down. Like, call me if it burns down. And yeah, I may be paying a little bit extra. I may be overpaying for some things, but the reality is you have now a nomad life where you can travel around and you don't have to be, getting the phone calls of the toilets or the HVACs. You don't have any of that, right?
Well, the biggest challenge that most entrepreneurs have, we're all wired very similarly, and we all have this control thing. We all want to be in control. And we somehow think, and I used to have my property managers call me on everything at one point. And so we somehow think that if they call us, we somehow have control over the situation and less things are going to break. It's like, no, you're actually, so we go through, I believe most entrepreneurs, if they're lucky, make it to 3 different phases. The first phase is solopreneur, where you do every single thing. And you get to a certain point where either you don't sleep and don't eat, or you have to reluctantly, like I did, hire somebody on your team, or else you just can't scale. And so I went from being a solopreneur to the second phase, which I call micromanager phase, where I hired my first property manager, but I needed to know everything that was going on. And I realized that I wasn't spending as much time doing the work, but when you added up all the time I spent on the telephone with my property manager, trying to pretend I knew better than him, I was still taking up just the same amount of time as just doing something different. And then I got to the third phase. Eventually, it took a while, and I call that the freedom phase. And when you can actually get the right people on your team that you trust, and you know they're looking out for your best interest, and that means you have to take care of them too. You can't, if you're treating your team like crap, they're not going to look out for you either. So the people on my team, I take really good care of them. I pay them probably more than they would get paid anywhere else, but they look after me, and I know they've got my back. And that's where I got my freedom, is when I stopped having to micromanage. I stopped dealing with phone calls with things that I had no control over, that just took up my day. And now I went from 15 years ago, I used to be a workaholic. And back then, my daughter's now 25. Back then she was 10 years old, and there were lots of days I'd leave home, it would be dark outside, and I'd come home, it would be dark, and I missed the whole day. She'd be in bed and I wouldn't see her. And now I've got 2 grandkids, and I'm very grateful. I can go spend as much time as I want with them, because I went from workaholic to playaholic. And now I work very, very little. And I'm very proud to say that. I sometimes say that I've gotten really lazy, and people always correct me and say that I'm working smart, not hard, which I think is good. And, but I'm glad that I made that transition, because it's so easy to get stuck in that rut of being a workaholic, and it's very hard to dig yourself back out of that. And so I feel very fortunate that I did. And so when I teach people, it's not how to work. I don't say, oh, just work harder, work more hours. No, it's like, find ways to leverage other people's abilities, and start building a team, start creating passive income that comes in while you're playing and having fun and hanging out with your kids or grandkids, or traveling or volunteering, or whatever it is that lights you up. You want to have that money coming in on autopilot, either because you've delegated, you've automated, or you've created these passive income streams that come in without you having to trade your time for it anymore.
Yes, absolutely. That's why they call you the freedom lifestyle entrepreneur, right?
That's me. That's me.
That's fantastic. So, Mike, if we have some people in the audience, which I know we do, that would like to talk to you more and learn more about you and what you can offer, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can email me. Either they can email me at info@mikewolfmastery.com, and it's wolf just like the animal, info@mikewolfmastery.com, or you can go to my website, which is mikewolfmastery.com. And I've actually got a free ebook on there, which basically talks about the best strategies that are working right now, even in real estate investing, even if you have little or no money. And so if I was a realtor that's maybe thinking of, hey, maybe I need some more tools in my tool belt, they're in there. There's some of the strategies that you want to learn. And like I said, a lot of them required no cash. And so this is stuff that if I would have had this ebook 31 years ago, I could have saved myself. Well, actually, I'm glad I had some of those very humbling moments, because I think I needed them. But it can help you avoid them and just be humble without having to make mistakes. That's a better way to do it.
Yep, for sure. Fantastic. And if you're sitting there saying, oh, well, I don't have time, because I know that continues to come up here. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to go learn a new tool. You know what? If you just take 30 days and you wake up 1 to 2 hours earlier than you normally do, and yeah, that may mean 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but if you did that for 30 days, look at what you could accomplish. You could go through and learn any skill in 30 days. And
Absolutely.
so don't let time hold you up. Don't let time be your excuse to really create the freedom that you want in your life, the freedom that you deserve to have in your life. So, Mike, I appreciate you spending some time with us today. And I strive to be as free as you and travel the world and have no worries.
Well, we're going to be hanging out a lot now that we're both in Cabo. So stay tuned. It's going to be so much fun. I'm glad that I met you, and I'm glad you're in Cabo.
Yes, we're building a little community of real estate investors down here, because
Okay.
we're all working remotely. and we're all working smarter, not harder, right? And we can do that on the internet. So again, thank you for joining us today. I know that the agents here really appreciated hearing from you, as I did. And so we are going to move on to the next guest here.